Hey, hello. Kind of jumped ahead and started getting some of the actual marking decals down. I got some transporter emitters here. I got a registry on here, and got all the lifeboats in the center area. Started coming along this side. I'll show you a little bit more, and you can see the lifeboats. Now they're kind of transparent a little bit. But now that I started putting them on, I actually like that you can see they're a little transparent. They're not so like lifeboats sticking right out in your face. Here's the old decals for the original, the old kit. And those were actually blue with the red. So I don't know what was going on back in the day. If, they did at one time have blue lettering, maybe on season 1 and 2. Because there is a difference between season 1 and 2 and then seasons 3 through 7. Especially when it comes with the thrusters markers. Like season 1 and 2, they were just these orange little blobs. But then 3 through 7, they made them look a little better. And then, of course, generations, they're different. But on the Platts, which is a newer release of the 1400 Enterprise, and of course the new one, it's in black. Like this is the new. You can see they're black with the red. So I'm going to say that's probably more canon. But the cool thing about this custom decal sheet is he gave me the different seasons. Here's seasons 1 and 2, those thruster markers, like I said, were just the orange blots. And then here's season 3 through 7. And then here's the movie Generations. So that's neat. Allowed you to do different versions. But we are in Fun with Lifeboats. And they're actually going down pretty easy, I do have to say. But I will show you what I'm doing. I have one single one here, but we need to cut another strip off of here. So this one here is what number? $240. To be ended. Yeah, $239. All right, it's $240. So this should be $241 to whatever. These are not die cut, so we got to cut close. So I'm gonna. It's much easier to just do as the whole strip. Cut them really close right there. Sorry if my lamp's out of the way. This is where, being old, you need to see things, and I use magnifying glasses. There we go. Set those aside. And then with having all this Aztec decal, it's hard to really see the raised bumps for the actual lifeboats. So I pulled my old lid out. That's why it's here, so I can kind of see roughly where they're at and what they're doing. There's not a lot of really main things on this bottom of the saucer is lifeboats. Only got that one registry right there, and these transporter emitters, and that's really it. But let's keep trucking here. I'll show you one, and then I'll keep on going. Pretty much repeat. So I won't bore you with all that. I'm definitely trying to get these cut fairly close, because you do have to move them around, and get some places they do get pretty close, especially up in these upper saucer areas. They're quite close to each other. I'm just cutting off what I need at the moment. So I don't get any numbers mixed up. But like I said, it doesn't matter. I think somewhere I have the two end ones flip flop, so it might go like 212 to 214, or I think it's 216 and then 213, 14, and then yeah, something weird like that. I noticed. But like I said, it's so small, you won't notice. But other than that, I got all of them correct so far in order. It's not a big deal, but it's really, I figured since it's not really having to do anything different to keep it in track. I mean, I guess I could just spend time cutting all off, you know, apart, and then just worry about putting them down. But then you can lose them too anyway, so I rather cut them as I need them. Custom ones I got here do not take long in order. I don't even put them in, like, I just dip them and then put them on the towel and they'll be ready to come off. So that's nice too. That makes it quicker. When you have to sit there and wait for them to break loose from the backing paper, can add time. I am so sore today from the surgery area here. There's a lot of things going on these last 3 days, and I had to be in a car and driving and doctor's appointments, and yeah, that just even driving and hitting bumps, man, whew, that hurt. All right, like I said, I might get this in the way because I'm blind, and it also helps you see where they're laying down. But pretty much, all you do is pick them up. Take them, see, they'll slide right off. Get them out of the way where I can. Let's do this. This is the fast part. So it's really not that bad. Now, if these were commercial ones with die cuts, it'd really be nice. But custom ones, we have to cut everything ourselves. Now, like I said, these are a lot more transparent than I was thinking. I didn't print these on like a white back. But like I said, I'm actually liking it. As I got more of them on there, I'm like, well, let me just keep putting some down. As long as my registries, you know, they're not transparent, I'm okay. And then that would have been a problem. But it's kind of neat to have a little bit of the Aztecing showing through. I really, lifeboats, I don't think they should be advertised. There you go. I like that. But again, I'm not going to bore you with all these lifeboats. But they're going down pretty fast. And like I said, I don't know how much you're seeing them, because they're fairly transparent. And especially until they get a clear coat on them. But we'll be back when we start on the top and do some of the fancy registries and get doing all that. There's at least a little more on the top. Not much, really. Just your big registry. And then you have some transporter emitters there. I think I already put that stripe here just to get rid of that piece on the top. That's really about it. And then we got that piece there. So it's pretty much a lot of lifeboats too. So, but anyway, I'm gonna keep on lifeboating it. All right, the bottom is done. So all the lifeboats are on there. I might take the camera down and get you maybe where you can see them a little better. Hold on, let me do that. There we go. And there they all are. Like I said, they're transparent. Like you can see areas where they're coming through, but that's okay. I'm all right with it. I like that they're kind of not like bright. I think the ones on the actual ship where I see them are like quite white, almost like the Enterprise C. But everything's coming out good. Registry. We'll talk a little more about what the number means, and once we do the top. Got those red markers. I almost forgot the little red markers around the phasers. But I believe I hit everything. I mean, I'm going to go through everything before I clear code everything. But yeah, I don't know if you can see, if we can get a focus. They are numbered, and I'm pretty sure I got most of them in. And it's just not going to focus. See if I can find a cluster that's we can get a focus on. No, it won't. Oh well. It's actually better when it's zoomed out. But they are numbered in an order, unless there's one or two that might be mixed up. I know somewhere there's one. There's like somehow I got the two M1s flip flop, but I wasn't going to worry about it. There's and it needs a clear coat. They're very dry. They're very dull. They didn't put much of a clear on them. But now it's time to do this side, and this is going to be the fun because we get the big registry. We got the marker back there, and then not as many lifeboats, so it shouldn't be as bad. According to this sheet, you only have, I think there's 161. I counted them because I wanted them to start at the earliest numbers on here and work their way down. Now, even though what I did is then I started with the earliest numbers here and kind of went like this, and then started from that number matches then this number, and then it goes around, and then it starts here, and then go and that number and goes around, and then of course then it starts here. But each one of these, these are different decks, so. But I really should have done I probably should have started here with the lowest number. That way, as it filters down from the top, it keeps going. But that's all right. In all intents and purposes, no one's really going to be able. You can't even read. Like, I don't even know if he changed the name. I'm sure that says. I'm sure. I know. I can see it says USS, but I can't tell if it still says Enterprise or not. On those, or if he changed them to what I wanted them to be. Not sure. But I'm going to go and start getting these guys down on the top. Well, all right, everybody. I got the two pairs of transporter emitters on. What else did I get on? I got those little half circles that go on there. Those I already had on. I put these little red markers that are kind of on the sides. But here's the big thing we were talking about, and I even got this back here. where I got the 70. The registry on this is 70424. Now that is the date that we lost Boyd, which is actually July 4th. What I did is I was looking to see what other numbers the Galaxy class starships had besides the Enterprise, which is always 1701. And it just so happens that, like even here off this sheet from another Galaxy class starship, they're in the sevens. Well, that worked. And here's one that actually is 70637. And they're 5 numbers where the Enterprise is only 4. But then you always have the ABCD. So I'm like, okay, how can I make that work with the date? I was thinking 07 for, but so the 7 is for the month, and then 04 is for the day, and the 24 is for the year. So that's how we got the registry number. And here's our registries. So it's the USS Crompton. Yeah, the NCC 70424. So that is cool. And then they gave this sheet gave me different versions to use. I'm going to go with the blue with the red trim around it, but I also do have, there's always something covering it. And with the static and whatever, but I do have the, the more traditional black with the red. So I had 2 options. Plus you have 2 options of the USS part. You can go with the red trim around it or just a straight up black. And that's the same here. You can go with either one of those. I think I'm gonna go with the border. I'm trying to think what are the normal. Well, here's the Enterprise actual decals. Yeah, they have the red trim around it for the main area. That must be the NCC that goes on the bottom, which we have there. So they give it. So all of them have the red trim around them. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's get this registry on. I figured I should kind of reveal that and show you it going down. And then we'll do all the lifeboats. And really, what else is really here to do on the top? Lifeboats. The only other thing is we just got to do those, like, they might not mark them on here. Well, this is the instructions that came with these custom. Yeah, that's the main things. And then on the sides, we got the thruster ports to put on. I've been kind of going, this is the instruction sheet that came with the custom decals. And where I got them, I think that's where it came from. Bob Matt's 343 Designs, custom decal and 3D prints. So he'll make you up anything, or he has remakes already for like Enterprises and stuff like that. But if you do want to make custom ones, he'll do them for you, and they came out great. Like I said, the only thing is these lifeboats should be even on the gray. It would still, they should have the white backing on them so that it keeps that color. But like I said, this is a custom ship, so I kind of like it. It doesn't stick out as much, so I'm okay with it. It's actually a kind of happy little accident, I guess you could say. But now these are homemade decals, so they're not die cut. So we want to trim as close as possible because we got enough decal film all over this stuff, all over this ship. And we're going to use that top one, so let's separate them two. Try to get rid of as much decal film as possible. There we go. There's that. That's not giving me, this one here doesn't really give you a good, I think this one here gives you a better, yeah, kind of. They're showing it a little more arched. So it's just below those sets of windows, somewhere right about in there, once we center it. We got to come up with our own center because this is a, at least on here you can see, okay, the T is their kind of center point, and then the 1 is kind of the center point for the actual enterprise registry. But we kind of got to come up with our own because, but the nice thing is it's all coming about the same. Like even though this is 5 letters, but then you don't have the D, so the force kind of filling in for the D. It's a little more tighter because it doesn't have the slash, but it makes it a little easier. You're not far off. Let's get rid of this just bold, just the blue USS Crompton. Any of those small ones, the small Cromptons, I might actually put on the Christine, hide it somewhere on the Christine model I'm going to do. That's another model. I guess it'll be a tribute build for him, but mainly because anytime I think of Christine, I think of that build of his Plymouth that he did. It's a good little video he has on it. So anytime I think of that, I think, and he used to set it up on Halloween, which is his favorite holiday. He would actually set it up. I think he showed pictures of it where he'd have the hood with like a body in there, like it crunched somebody. All right, I believe that's how she kind of is going to be. If I remember correctly, it's going to be, we use this center panel line. Everything wants to stick to my finger, so it's like you can't move something and let go to see how it looks. It's going to be right about there. I know we have a panel line we could run on. That would be awesome, but I don't think there is. Definitely way over. It's like you're almost splitting the 7. It still needs to go a hair more over. Like there's a panel line there, but I can't because that goes through the windows. I can't really use that one. It doesn't make sense it goes through the windows. Everywhere else it doesn't. But we got our lifeboats there, and I don't want it like riding those lifeboats. So I think what I'm going to do is use that detail, these little detail things, and ride it right on that. And then let's see how this seems like it's going to be a little high if I do that. I mean, it does look like the registry and the name is really close. Let's look at other pictures. Yeah, fairly. Okay. I might want to get rid of a little more of that paper here, so if I have to slide the smaller one around, I'm going to be bouncing into this clear. Should use those small little scissors I have for vinyl. There we go. I like that. Oh, you know what? There's nothing to it but to actually do it. And believe it or not, I've been waiting to do this for a long time. And I ordered these custom decals. I could probably get this one. Oh, these decals, you don't need to set them in like 5 seconds, maybe 3. You can sit them on the towel, a towel to dry, and they're pretty much starting to pop. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I can move now. This is a bigger decal than the lifeboats. Yep, look, yep, see, it's starting to move already, which is nice because especially when you're doing a lot of lifeboats, you're not sitting there waiting forever. All right. We know it goes from about that single to that single window. Plenty of water here in this area. I think I need to come up with a new brush because this one's starting to drop bristles. All my brushes that used to be great now are starting to drop bristles. Alright, so let's start sliding that end off. Grab this end. And guesstimate about what we're going to have here. Oh, it's going to look good. I was hoping that blue would show up with all this blue Aztecing going on. Oh, that's great. Sorry, folks, for my big head, but like I said, this is the only way I can see and make sure we get bubbles out. I could probably go pretty close to those windows now. Yeah, they have them fairly, it's pretty close. But I do want to leave room because I don't want it to look like the lifeboats are bouncing off the edge. So we're going to go, maybe we'll go up to that detail there. Now it looks like we're pretty much lining up with that. I might have to go a little more that way because I'm looking at the clear. I think I can follow the Aztec patterns. The lower ones. See how these are, this one's a little higher, but these are a little lower. If I follow that all the way around, that'll give me my, I think that'll work for me. All right. Sometimes you get indirect light, you can see, I can see the detail better. Now, are we looking center? We're looking pretty center, I'm actually going to say. And just like on the Enterprise, that slash and the 1 are, it's on the edge of that 1, and it's kind of on the edge of the 7. And that should be about right. And theirs go a little bit past, but like I said, that slash makes that slash between the 4 numbers and where this will be a D, kind of making their decal a hair bigger. It's got the same amount of characters, except for the Enterprise D has that 1 slash. You really have, that, and then they have 4 numbers, and then a slash, and then a letter. If we think of this as the letter, it's missing that slash. So that's why theirs probably goes a little further left and right. Now, I know I bumped it, but let's get rid of some of this water so it doesn't move as much. Plus, then it gives it its right arc. And let's make sure I'm where I like it. Yeah, we're going to go off of that Aztec line. And I think that's going to give us a good spacing between these windows, lifeboats, and the registry. And that should give us enough room for the next part of the registry. Yeah, because here's that detail there. We're falling right on the 4. And here's that detail there, and we're falling pretty much right on that end. So that's actually working out good. So I'm going to say good, good. Actually, I'm going to rub this way because if I do move it a hair this way, it's fine. Yep, I'm extremely happy with that. Now let's see if we can get this other one where we want it. The nice thing about, like I said, with this one, I can kind of, gives me, being accustomed, I can kind of, gives me a little free will to do what I want. Now here I forgot and I didn't pay attention to where center was. I'm just going to lay it down and just start moving. I don't think I want mine as far down as they have theirs. Close to that, at least to what it's showing on paper. Theirs also looks straight. He has a little curve, which I like the curve. All right, there's that detail there. Where is it on here? If I kind of split the difference there, it should fall right. I'm about halfway in the 2 here. I'm almost about halfway on the C there. But if we use... I can use this panel line as my top where the arc, or even have it a little bit go over. For the majority of it's riding that panel line that's going around like this. Just the ON and the US are dipping down. Now do we look center? Like I said, there's that detail. You're not going to see it. It's those rays craziness they got going on here. And here's that one. And they look pretty evenly split. Sometimes when you're looking at stuff like this so much. Oh, I pulled a lifeboat off somewhere. I should have sealed the bottom, but I wasn't planning on touching it so much. Where did we lose you? That's going to be the fun part right away. Find out. There you are. All right. Now I got to see which way it came off. I'm going to guess like that. Yep. And you went back on there nice and... Yeah, that was lifeboat number 399. I got to be, like I said, I got to be careful. I'm trying to touch the edges, but I got to be careful of our registry here. I just think that end's a little lower than the U. So we might have to see what... Try not to... Here, I can grab back there. There's no lifeboats. Yeah, this U could either come down more or that end could go up more. Let's see what happens when you... Hi, Jack. Always coming up at a not so good a time. There we go. Now, do I want any of that in the panel line? I think I might try it down this, all of this. One good thing about these decals is they do give you plenty of time to move things around. What do I can, let's, just for giggles, since it is moving around on me fairly nice. Come on, dude. You gotta get down. You gotta get down. As soon as I'm doing something that I like don't want to move that much, you'll bounce into my arm. That's what he always does. You're like sitting here with a knife and you're just trying to give it a little move, and then all of a sudden you get a boom and his head rub. His lovey dovey. I want to see what it looks like. Oh. Actually, kind of liking that better. Just look too squished. Yeah, I'm liking that a little better. A little more breathing room between the USS Crompton and the NCC 70424. That looks more natural. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to let that dry. Let's make sure lifeboat number 399 is still behaving. Yeah, if I look at that, I like that. And that gives you more space between the lifeboats that are going to go right there. I know I'm going to stare at it for several times, but yeah, that looks good. All right, let's let those dry. And we got to do, like I said, all these lifeboats. Now, I counted under 60, but I was going off of this. You can see where I actually started writing, but they never told you those back there are lifeboats. So we're going to have out of sequence numbers back there. I didn't notice it until I was just putting that down. But I wanted to definitely show you. I'm not going to bore you all with the lifeboats, but I just thought that that should be actually filmed. It makes me happy now to have that on there. And like I said, that's his date, and that worked out great. July 4th, 2024, or 2024. And it falls, and the nicest thing is it falls in registries that are already out there. All the other Galaxy class starships are 5-letter or 5-number, and here's one that actually is a 7-0. But off to the at least 160. I think that's what it is here, plus whatever's down there. Yeah, 160. Doesn't seem like there's that many. There we go. I'm going to let them dry. It don't really take much for these guys to dry either, but I don't want anything getting moved. And we will click back when we get some more of this done here. Okay. Aztecing is all done. Finally, on all this. I had a little issue here in these spots. This side here, I was trying to get like the air bubbles down. I already had a little cracking, but I saved it the first time, let it dry overnight. And I was going back and like I'll poke holes and then put a little water in there and get some spots to set down. And I noticed this whole kind of piece flaked off. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? So what I did is I cut the whole thing out, and I have those ones from Hijacks. I have 2 sets of Enterprise D Aztecs from them, which is where I got this decal here that I took. I'm going to use their, because they're very beautiful, especially the engines. I mean, they may not be Canon, but they're beautiful. The design on here. So probably I wish they would have been, like I said, I ordered 2 for this one and the other one I had before I got the transparent newer release of the Enterprise. So I was going to use those, but he sent me one. I think I said this before. He sent me one. I called him back and said I ordered two. He finally sent me out the other two, the other set, but it had all the black. The windows were all blacked out, or it wasn't just the Aztecing. They actually had windows holes. So then I'm like, what do I do? So then I ordered another one of these for him. But really, that would have been a nice decal set to probably do on Boyd's because it's custom. But I have to go through those and find out between the two sets if I can get one to fully work. Because the other reason why I didn't want to use it for... Uh-oh, that slid. One of my transformer porter emitters slid. See if it broke. I mean, it must have just happened. Is it movable? Nope, it's... Ah! Whatever you do when you drop a knife, just don't try to grab for it. Just let it do its thing. That's when you get hurt. Try to grab for it and it stabs you. It's better that it stabs your leg or something. Yeah, so you must have moved a little bit ago because you're already fastened down. I can get it to move again, but there it goes. Yeah, it's starting to move. Come on, break. Once water gets under it, there we go. One little spot. I got plenty of these transport emitters, but I don't want to. There it goes. These might be different than the ones that come with the other sets. All right. But anyway, I forget where I was at. So what I did is I knew I'm not going to use one set, so I went and found the decal he had for this and cut these little grill. It's a little grilly part on the bottom here, so I went and cut those out and put them in there. Just cut the other one out as well so they matched. But I really like that, how it gives it a different color there. So it's neat. It worked. It's Savior. Thank goodness I had that. Yeah, because it chunked a piece from, like, I had a little weirdness going here and I fixed that. Actually, this light blue that's right here used to be over here somewhere on the original decal, and I cut it off because I lost a little bit adjacent to this detail. So I'm like, oh, I'll use that. And since I'm cutting this out, I'll use those little light blues to cover this area here. So this actual light blue I placed there, that's not normal to the set, but it worked. It looks good. And I hit all the jagged, right? Yeah, because it was one of these blues here going up like that, and it got all chunked out too as well. But yeah, I lost like a piece, like right here. It lost all that. Like I said, it was doing weirdness. What was happening is these areas were actually lifting, and they had air under it. So I was going through and just cutting around here and getting water under it, and must not have been paying attention when handling it. Must not. I found one part of it and I could have got it to seal, but there was another piece missing. So I don't know if it broke into multiple pieces or what happened. But anyway, we saved that. And I actually like that. So sometimes things happen and you end up liking them better. But yeah, adding that blue in there helped. The light blues. I forget where those were at. I think they were on this edge, and they were right on this edge. Where these grills, this detail here on this decal goes all the way from side to side. But on the AMTs, this blue was riding right up on here. So when you cut that out, you had it. Even though this one was a little broken right there, but I was able to piece it together to get it to match on each side. Some things like here, you don't even have to worry about matching because, especially on the saucer, things are all over the place. Like here you have a little more like this little P looking thing is here, but it's also here. and that shape there is there. And it looks like pretty much on everything on the bottom here is that way. But like if you look up here, this is not the same as this side. And that's the way that, you know, because it's the saucer, and the saucer is the same way. The engines are all uniform. What's on one side is on the other. Pretty much all this here is too. It's like the lower hull, they went and match things left to right. But like even up here where you start getting into the like here it's all kind of matches, but here they consider that kind of part of the saucer, and you got different detail. And the glare not helping. You kind of got a different detail here than here. So the saucer's all over the place. So I couldn't do something like that, so I had to make it match and get both of those little blue pieces in there, and we did. But so far as marker decals, I got the red stripe going on here. That went down well. Of course, those transmitter port areas. But I want to do the. Been waiting to do the pennants on the cells. Now here is the normal pennants for Enterprise D, which is that white emblem. But we're not doing that on Boyd's. Boyd was, from what I'm remembering and things, he was a big old school TOS 60s kind of Enterprise kind of guy, you know. He liked the newer ships, but he definitely liked the aesthetics of like the Matt Jeffries stuff. And so the guy that made custom decals also made an alternative version of the pennants. So I'm going to use these because they kind of have that old school TOS look. Same thing with the one that's on the belly. There's the one that the Enterprise D has, but we're going to go with that one. So that's neat. Yeah, he gives you. Now I also see that, like, I don't know, I'm not familiar with all the other ships. There's also versions down here where it says Venture Refit. And then this also says Venture Refit, which you could put here because it's labeled 15, which is what these are. I'm not sure what the Venture is or what any of that means. I also don't know what all these silly things here are. There's no numbers. There's no placements on his instruction sheet on where those go or what they are. I guess you could just kind of go at it as you will. I never seen them on any ship. I don't see any of the other decals have anything like that. Like they're on here too. Like I don't know what I can't even tell you what they even are. Looks like a, almost like a coil thing, and it has red around it. Then some type of little weird blackness on it. Yeah, I don't know what they are. I wish they would have told you. These things down here are different versions of the decal that goes right about here. I think normally it's that. Normally it's this one with that circle thing and a little slash behind it. And that looks like he gives you alternatives. Circle, slash, and then that mark. Or you could just use that mark. I don't know. Here it says 35, so it has it marked in the right spot on his sheet. But it gives you alternative things to use. Also have a bunch of pinstripes that can go along the chiller grills here. One, one on top and bottom on each side, each nacelle, which I'll do. I've never seen that in any other Aztec or even the latest round 2 versions. So I don't know if that's a canon thing, but it'll look cool on this ship, so I'm going to do that. And these are those normal things they have on that go down here. I notice he has those. It says that those go here on the nacelles. And that's basically it. Everything else is just different versions. We still have lifeboats, stuff like that. Then these are different versions of thrusters. Season 1 and 2 were the old orange ones. And in season 3 through 7 were these more blocky ones. And then I use the Generations versions. Yeah, that must just give you a different version that you could use, either 40 or 41. That's what I'm assuming. So I will probably look off the filming miniature and see if I can get a good shot at what one they use or what's on the actual Generations. Because I think that's, to me, that's my favorite version of it. Come on, Jack. My kitty cat's always under my feet. Yeah, because Generations is my favorite version. I like the more broader Aztecing. I like the darker shade. Nothing wrong with, especially when you get into the later series, like I said, like here, where they, like season 3 through 7, they definitely stepped up how the ship looked. And of course, back then, that was a filming miniature. So this kind of has a little angle back here, so I'm going to put these like that. And I might skosh them. They say to put them back so that falls right about there. And that's going to put that pendant on too much detail. That's one thing I think round 2 needs to do. If you're going to, and they probably just didn't want to retool, or you're probably using the same tooling from whenever this first version that I have. I'm not sure which body, because the plats in the old AMT version I have are pretty much identical. But yeah, they're using the same tooling, but I think that what they need to do, especially when they're starting to release these transparent ones and stuff like that, they need to get rid of all this detail. I think it was something great when they didn't have Aztecs. It gives some type of thing going on. And if this was a bigger ship, and where it wouldn't be like, to try to paint mask all this on this scale of ship, especially the 4 color, which is really your base, and then 3 other colors. You got a blue, almost a grayish blue, and then this light blue. To try to mask all that would just be ridiculous. Because then you're still laying sheets of masks down. The only way to do it quickly, you're still laying sheets. You could probably make one there, but then you're still laying different mask sheets down and trying to get them to stick down on this textured thing. When everything dries nice and it dries in and you can kind of see that raised detail, it's great. But it's really hard for these Aztec decals. You might have it sitting down. You might even get all the air bubbles when they start. They're going to shrink as they dry. And then what happens is they, on a smooth surface, they're able to shrink and kind of pull evenly and not almost make themselves have more air bubbles. Or there's ones you can't get out because they get trapped in a little square. But some of these details they're just not lines like panel lines, and you can kind of squash them. Nope, I'm filming, buddy. Come on, you can hop up. Come on. Jack, come on. No, he doesn't want to. He wants attention. He's my co-pilot. Anyway, like I was saying, yeah, panel lines, you can always just, okay, you got an air bubble trapped along the panel line. You can kind of swooshy it out, and then it'll somewhere eventually comes out underneath the decal. But when you have like detail where it's a bunch of, you got panel lines and you got all these little squares that kind of almost box themselves in and do all kinds of weird stuff, you can't get them to get out anywhere. And then for the decal, when it's drying and it's trying to shrink, it gets snagged on all these little bumps, and then it causes a raised area. You know, here's say this is one of those detail humps. The decal's laying over it. It might be sunk at first, but then as it's drying and things are trying to pull, it's pulling over, and it's like stretching a piece of paper over top of this, and it leaves a line of air. So this is not a very wallpaper decal friendly ship. A molding of this ship. I think if you're gonna sell this as a ship to be decaled like this, I really would be nicer to have everything smooth, except for panel lines. Normal panel lines in the ship going this way or around this way and that way on the saucer, that's fine. But like they tried to add the detail like of these stripes in raised panels, and then it's not even recessed; it's raised. Recessed would be one thing, but these are raised panels. Like you can see all on this here. I don't know. It's all raised, and that's hard, and it's all enclosed. So all those trap bubbles, and then even if you get them out, when you come back the next day as it dries and it tries to shrink, and it can't, not as smoothly, as it would normal. So oh well. But you got to do the best you can. I mean, I guess the thing is, I've never seen up close. You always see it in pictures and that far. I never seen anybody else's work on this ship up close. And I guess if you wanted to spend like a long time on one decal and constantly setting it down and hitting solution and coming back and tweaking it some more, but it's just too time consuming. And this thing's I already took enough time on this thing. A lot of things going on, and now I'm going through cancer treatments again, which doesn't help. Uh, but I'm doing well. I'm not so sore as I used to be in the side here. At first, it was like someone smacked me in the side of the chest like twice with a baseball bat and broke my ribs. That's what it felt like. So, but anyway, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. But hi, there he is. Here's my Jack. Come on, go show the camera since you're up here. There's your head. There you are. Here's my buddy. Here's my buddy Jack. He usually sits in my computer chair, or if I go to the computer, he sits in this chair, or if I'm sitting in this chair and I get up, he hops into this chair. But you've been helping out in a lot of builds, haven't you? On and off the scene. But it's late at night. He wants to. He's in I want attention mode. Now you're gonna rub against things and there's sharp objects here. That's my buddy. Say hi to everybody. Say hi. Look over the camera. No. And he drools when he's happy. Ain't you? All right, buddy. I gotta keep trucking here. Over your co-pilot's chair. There you go. He's like my Chewbacca. So anyway, back to getting something done. Let's get these soaking to have a more TOS look. One of these newer ships, which I love the shape. This is one of the ships I like the most. It almost has this deflector dish here. It always reminds me of uh, War of the Worlds. It looks like those war machines. And I always love those war machines from the original. When I see that, I always see the war machine. That's why I always like this ship. That always reminds me of the war machine. the way that this hull is set up. So I always like this Galaxy class. And one other thing I liked about the Galaxy class is the nacelles aren't all way up here. They're down. Which, according to lore, is they lowered them because it kept them from being such a target. Streamlined the ship instead of them being way up here like this. And now the saucer is actually higher than the nacelles. But the whole ship has that sleek, streamlined look to it. I love the oval shaped saucer, not just a round saucer. So this has always been one of my favorite. It took me a minute to get into the series. But that's because season 1 was so rough because everybody was trying to figure everything out. And once the actors figured out the characters and then the writers got to actually write more character-driven stories, the show really became nice. I think like season 3 for me was where I started really getting it. There's some good episodes in 1 and 2, but consistently, season 3 was really cool and on. All right. I know these decals are usually set up or break loose really quick. Let's see if it's still doing that. I know for the lifeboats, man, you didn't have to let them sit very long at all. It's starting to break. Oop, a big splash. Looks like I gotta touch up this. Take a look at that. What we got going on here? I think you probably stuck to the paper when you were getting sprayed. Yeah, gunk. There's so much clear coats on here. I didn't get. I'm not worried getting down to the paint. I think it's ink because I had to sit this upside down, spray the bottom. So I probably sprayed a little too far down when I was spraying the top or the bottom. And probably had some ink pull up from the paper I had it sitting on. There you go. There's so many clear, well, there's clear to put down the Aztecs and to seal the base coat. And then I hit it with a clear again, another gloss coat, before I'm putting these marker type decals on. That way things don't shrink and, all of a sudden this Aztec decal wants to shrink more this way or something because there's solvents in your clear coat so it can make decals set. And if one wants to crack or tear or shrink weird, it doesn't make like this line go whoop. So I figure it's best to seal this and then do our decals and then we'll seal it again. We're going to kind of start here. I noticed these have a dry look. Like I said, I don't know what type of seal, if he did a flat seal. Maybe because that way you can put it on and not have to worry about clearing them again, but yeah, because they want them like right there. And that's not horrible, but I don't like all that empty space up there either. This sheet just shows you where. It doesn't really give you. And that's the sheet that came with these customs. Easy, I'll look off of here. This one's really good, the Platts one. You can kind of see, okay, there's where that original one ends. Just there's a square that these little ports, little open spots are. It's ending at the one just before it. And that's where, for the most part, she's setting right now. But I'm going to go with a hair higher. Alright, let's get this one on. It's odd unless I was rambling that much. Now the other problem with these decals is they're not printed on a white backing, so all your colors kind of are not very vibrant as you'd see them on the paper. But that's okay. Yeah, it worked when I went like this, didn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much in between everything, so. And we're starting at the same, yeah, so there we go. Yeah, I was been waiting to put them on for a while. Since I got them. And that's going to make her completely different than the Enterprise. It's nice to get some colors on here besides just the blues. And even though I love the blues, like even just adding transparent in lifeboats made a big difference. Starting to see, it's starting to look more alive. But I just wanted to show you some of that. It's going to be a lot of the stuff. Only other thing with this one down here, since it's got that thick red, I got to make sure I can kind of, might not be Canon, but try to get it so it misses my light, my belly light. I'm not sure where that should be. I went off of what Gary had on his instructions for the light kit. So I got to see how that's. I'm going to try to move it so the light's right in between. I mean, I could put the pennant over it, but then you would get a yellow flash. Or yellowish flash. Make sure I didn't do anything stupid like bump them. Nope. I'm liking them. Well, all the marker decals are on the drive section. So it's looking good. Still a little wrinkly here. I hope when I do another coat, it might settle it down. I'm not sure. It did on this, so we'll see. I think once I get these together, I want to do another full-on coat on it. But we're ready to attach this. Got to get the power up, and then we'll test that to make sure everything's working. The other night I did this and these separate. Everything was still working, but we'll make sure our connection. And I backfed it from here, so. And I was working on here, but the only thing I didn't test, as far as with this, is the flashers. There's only one flasher on this. Nabs were working, but just that there. So that's something we don't know if still working on these. But yeah, I already pre-stripped this side, so we just gotta pre-strip these guys. And I think I want to make sure I have a good amount of wire. And then what will happen is we've got plenty of room to push everything up in here, and we can get some more down in here. And I scraped areas clean, especially the peg and the hole, to make sure it accepts. Parts, and we're doing plastic bonding. So we got to get a good bond in here. What I think I'm going to do is use old school Testors tube cement because it's slow, it's thick, but once it bonds, it really melts the plastic. So we'll use that on these 4 points. And in here, I think I'm just going to hit epoxy because I think that'll ride in here. From what it looks like, that indent is for in there. So we'll put epoxy all in here, and then we'll use the old school Testors tube cement, which is still relevant cement, especially when you need to glue things that are structural. This is still, I think, the best stuff to go with because it'll sit there and melt instead of the real runny stuff. Even the Tamiya stuff like this is just a little thicker and definitely melts. I still think, that works for 90%, but when you need something structural and you want it to stay and not run away, that's going to be your best. Because I remember as kids trying to break apart models with this glue on it, and you're not breaking that glue joint. It's welded solid. Probably even stronger than the plastic. So what we'll do is we'll strip these and we'll twist them, and we'll get shrink tube over them. I think we'll slide shrink tube over the wires first, and then we'll twist and then solder, and then we can bend them over and then roll that piece of shrink tube right over it. I think we'll slide them over these first because they're down low. I'm afraid they'll slide down in that hole and we won't get them. We're here, we're kind of a little lower. And hopefully my gun, solder gun, is hot. Alright. Might as well do this one at a time. What we'll do is we'll just bend the wires over like that so it makes one, and I cut enough shrink tube that should cover all that nice. Now I've got the socket put in place. Really nice. It's all been painted and puttied, and I started to lay down some of my decals from the markings that come with the basic kit. Beautiful put down on Aztec decals. You can see here we've got the AMT Round 2 Aztec decal set that just came in. Before we get to that, we're going to talk about. And again, just laid over flat like that. You can see I've got it on my base now. I did a little gloss coat on my base. That all slipped up really good. I put on all the rest of the small little detail parts. I've got my pulse engines done there. I've got my pulse crystals. I've got my bridge. Really happy to say that after we sealed it all up and checked everything, all the lighting was working. We'll do one more, but that's not the goal. Now I know with flashers, I know sometimes you think it'd be easier just to send a positive wire down and just have the negatives group with your regular on power, but you can cause weirdness to happen because a lot of times that circuit board that's doing the flashing needs to see that power come back, and or did that piece of tube go in there? Oh no, there's And sometimes it can, since it's pulsing, it can cause a pulse in something else. Usually not so bad if you don't have series. But I know, like on I did an Enterprise where I used just the flashing bulb, the flashing on the back bottom of the engineering hall, not the very bottom, but on the sides, on the back towards the shuttle bay. I was like, instead of using two flashers or using a flash board to keep them in sync, I'll use one as a flasher and the other one as regular and run it in series and control it. And what happens is the flasher itself turns on and off completely, but this one kind of still glows, you know, and it's in between flashes. So that's why I send both the positive and negative down to here. All right. Well, I guess what we should do is see if we have any issues. Uh-oh. I didn't see anything there. No, I'm still not seeing anything. There we go. This is how it was grabbing wires. I see flashers. Yeah, I see lights. Yep. We do have to touch up. I'm getting a little bleed through, especially at the bottom on these impulse. So I'll have to hit a little black in there and then hit a gray and then hit it with a clear coat. We'll do all that kind of stuff before we do our final clear coat. I did a satin now. It kind of hides a little bit of the bumpiness. I might dust it with a flat. But hey, we're doing good. Our little fiber optics are still working in the back. Yep. Flashers are working on top. Yep. I'm just going off a reflection off of that. So that's great. And torpedoes are launching. Yep. I still need to hit them a little red, or they're flashing a little pink. But that's okay. I can do that and seal them. What else? Let's get that off the side. There's something else we need to do. Oh, our little fiber optic here to give us that light there. But we can do that once we get this glued. But that's that's one detail we got to get on there. We'll drill a little hole and stick a fiber optic in there, mushroom it over, stick it in with a little can of glue, and that should do that. We gotta, of course, glue this on. I don't know if I hit that with a little bit of a clear coat. I'm kind of liking it, just leaving it the way it is. Now, the big thing with the windows is where some Aztecs go across windows, and yeah, I don't know. And I might have to hit this with a flat anyway, because I still got to draw in all the closed windows. So I got to get a good Sharpie and then draw in all the closed windows yet. Ones with no lights on, I should say. Because you got to be careful with inks, especially with clear coats, because clear coats will make the inks run. So it's like, it'd be better if it was like a really fine point paint marker would be better. I don't know. I'll have to go to Hobby Lobbies or something, or look online and see what would work best. I mean, if you do use a marker, you got to spray your thin coat, your clear coat to seal it. You got to spray really light until it actually builds up, and then it stops activating it. We can start gluing this together. Like I said, I should mix up epoxy. Let's get you guys coiled so you're not. And I also got to come up with something to hold this. Because if this is going to be like this, I don't know if we want it to, or can it sit like that? I can just prop something under here. And we already have that glue. We just need epoxy. A little bit of epoxy and some garbage tape. Because again, like I said, this is going to be holding that weight for a long time like that. There's going to be a lot of stress in this area. And I feel much better having a big epoxy. I could even dab in these corners where this other part will squish down. That's a problem. You don't know exactly where they're sitting down. That's why they gave you these raised areas. You don't want to seal everything because you want it to look like it comes apart. So that's the bonus, that we don't have to make this joint look like a nice smooth panel line. There we go. That looks better. And the good thing is this is a slow glue, and this is at least 5 minutes. So it's going to smell like childhood, because that's what I think about when I smell this glue. There it goes. Problem with this glue is once it goes, it doesn't stop. We can hit some areas. Because once you dent that bottle, it wants to keep oozing out of there. All right, now let's get this epoxy going, and I guess we'll do it here. Hope and pray that what I'm thinking is that deflector, or that phaser area, since they made that dent in that plastic, and it's about right if you look visually where it should be. I'm assuming that's where this phaser sits. All right. Sure, we got no stringiness going on there. You are all gonna have to shove some little more in that one. Most of it's gonna have to go down in there, and I might even need tweezers to do it. Find that peg. There it goes. Crunch. Everything's gonna be a little tighter. I'd love to flip it over just so I can see what's going on. That's the best you gotta. The only thing I'm not liking is that gap there, but I can't shift anything any which way. I'm getting a little bit of shifting. That's just the way she was molded. It's still all in all not bad. And it's okay to have that gap. We just want to try to minimize it as much as possible. Oh, this gives it, I don't think this gives it enough.
Big difference. Put some better lighting on it.
Yeah, it does.
Start showing some beauty shots of model. Person looks like the door. Wow, talk about light. The way I could change that on there.
That's the way she's gonna be. I don't know if I can get a clamp there. Might be able to. We might, Rabbit. That was better. Like I kind of want to do this for a minute. That also might help it push that top in. That's looking all good there. I wanted to flip up like this because we put the glues and everything on the saucer, and this way it runs down onto the other parts. You know, since we did it on the saucer, that's why because there was a lot of glue. That way it's going to drop down and hopefully go onto this part. I'm liking how those impulse engines are looking. Like, I take this one out of the way for now. And like I said, there's a little spot there I got to touch up. That side looks good on the top. The bottom definitely needs work. Yeah, they look great. For the project, I'm very happy, especially with the custom decals. I should definitely put a this where I know I got them. Did I get them off Etsy or eBay? I think I got them off of eBay. Yeah, but I think he has an Etsy store too with the paper I got. I think I stored it away with the rest of the manuals for the other two ships. But I'll definitely put something down because that's great that you can get. Looks like he makes a whole bunch of different decals to replace. You know, if you have an older AMT Reliant or say, you know, Klingon battle cruiser, or even like me, the old version of this from the 90s. Those decals are going to be yellow. And if you, like you said, if you want to come up with your own ship like we did here, it came out great. What he did. The biggest thing I would say is needs to be on backed on white. Like he did these 2s and 3s, probably with a different printer so he could print the actual white number. But it still pops up as white, so you need a white backing on some of these because they'll be transparent. Now, I like it. For this ship, I like it. Because then these lifeboats don't stick out like boom. Some are like white. And I think that's pretty much what comes with the actual AMT kit, which is what they did. But I kind of like this, that this is these lifeboats don't stick out.
basically tell.
It almost gives you this green hue with the blues.
I went on the back
The
side.
shuttle bay is all working, which is awesome. And everything in there worked out great. Even doing that little roof where I lifted it up so you can't see. Because otherwise you would have been able to look down and where their roof started, it was dropped down because of the bridge. And then, because there's a hump here where this piece drops in, there's a hump in the plastic. And you would have saw the lights and the wiring going up for the lights for the bridge. And since the shuttle bay goes all the way back here and still have lights up on top, that worked out good. So yeah, and I can see all those little shuttles back there. That's awesome. Like I said, I don't know if you can see how that's kind of glowing a pink in the one corner. I just got to tap it with a little more transparent red. But these are working good. Everything's working good. Well, like I said, we just need to let this sit overnight. But like I said, I want to keep running this power, so if anything goes wrong, I'd rather know now.